Is that okay?
So, yeah, you're live now. So just wait for a bit, and then you'll do the reading, and then after a while.
Hi, Musonda. Hi, Troy. Hi, Jamaica. Oh my God. Get rid of that. Hi, everyone. Hi, Musonda. Hi, James. Hi, Kina. Hi, Zukiswa. Hi, Elm. Hi, Joel. Remy. I do, I know. Hello. Hi, Barase. I'm so excited too. Ooh. I love you too. Hi, Maza. Oh, let me wave and wave and wave. Hi, Victor. Yeah, Manchester's happening. Okay, should we start? Hello, you guys stop sending those messages, otherwise I won't be able to start. Hi, Natalie. Hi, Bissy. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Nansubuga Makumbi, and I'm reaching you live from Manchester. How is everyone? Oh my God, I'm so glad. Chike, you're not sharing in this head wrap. Okay, I'm going to start by reading from Upside Down. Manchester happened. It's on Amazon right now. It's £199. I can't believe it. For corona reasons. So I'm going to read from one of the final stories in the second last part. And it's called The Aftertaste of Success. It's about a woman who's just returned from Britain to Uganda, and she's starting to reinsert herself into the Ugandan life. So I'm going to read for perhaps 6 to 7 minutes. Okay. Kampala City feels like a toddler learning to walk. There is exuberance despite the many falls. Manchester was middle-aged, around 220 years old. The thought of Kampala growing is at once optimistic and depressing. You want those kids off the streets, but the idea of that concrete used to build megacities sunk into these virginal hills of Kampala is almost sacrilegious. Sometimes Manchester city centre felt like a steamed up bus, as if someone were breathing too close to your nostrils. Kampala is dust. Manchester city centre felt like a... Sorry about that. As if someone were breathing too close to your nostrils. Kampala is dust. It makes the building look so weather-beaten. It's a waste of time getting irritated by borders. They own the city now. Young people are skinny. So are most men. As if middle-aged women eat all the food. The build of the women's body, their gaits, the hairstyles, the mannerism, the colorful clothes. I never realized how good-looking Ugandans were until I left the country. All but one of the messages carried for Ugandans in Manchester have been collected by their loved ones. 2 days after I arrived, I rang them and they collected their envelopes. Today I deliver Mika's, the last one. It's for his parents. They're elderly and it's a lot of money. Mika and I were quite close, which is rare. Friendship among Ugandans in Britain is transient. People so busy, too guarded, too jittery. You can't expect someone who goes to bed not sure where she will be when the sun rises, or someone who had been betrayed back home, or people who walk on their tiptoes because they fall in love the other way, to offer you firm friendships. But Mika was always there, generous and quiet. We had to be careful, though, that nonsense that men and women can't be best friends. I'm going to start by announcing myself to family. People take it personally if you don't tell them that you're back. You never know when you'll need their help. Then they will click. She came back, didn't even tell us. Now she wants our help. So I'll start with mother, then Nakazana, my grandmother, then lunch with my sisters, and finally I'll go to Mika's parents. On second thoughts, I'll start with grandmother. Nakazana is mother, father, aunt, grandmother all in one. My parents are supplements. But Nakazana is not your typical melting grandmother. Wait till you meet her. She's a tough girl. Even age is struggling to cure her. I so love my grandmother, there's not enough water in the Nalu Valley. But if I find her arguing with someone, my heart will go out to that person. In the late 1950s, she was a trailblazer, the first woman to do business in Kenya, or so she says. And when other traders flocked to Kenya, she turned to Zaire. And in the 1980s, she changed to Dubai. And when other people flooded Dubai, she went to Japan to import reconditioned cars, then Denmark for Bitengi. She has always held a British passport. Her reasons? She was born in the British Empire and her father fought in the World War II. She says that in those days, saying, "I'm British," opened doors around the world. She had an address in London long before she set foot in Britain. Renewals of her passport were sent there. Because of the merchandise shop she set up in the 60s, then the famous Bunjo boutique in Uganda House, and finally in the 80s, the mobile petrol station that doubled as reconditioned Nagoya car dealerships. Tongues that whipped women into domesticity lashed. You can feel the welts in her hoarse voice, the spikes in her temperament, and in her confrontational attitude. Tongues say she made her money by selling herself, first in Mombasa, then in Dubai, London, and finally in Amsterdam. But in Zaire, she smuggled gold, they said. The rumors about Dubai were so hurtful. Apparently, Arabs made such women fuck their dogs. Kids in primary school would shout at me, "Chichitone, is your grandmother still a Malaya?" Consequently, Nakazana grew thorns on her skin. But sometimes her thorns turn into loved ones. Best to get her out of the way first thing this morning. Thank you. Hi. Okay, I'll take some questions. Troy, how do I get you on?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, Troy. Sorry I locked you out.
No, it's completely fine. So thank you so much for that reading. I see there's already questions that have started coming in. But
Okay.
before that, I just wanted to ask you, one of your most famous short stories is called Let's Tell This Story Properly. And I just wanted to know what it means to you to tell a story properly.
Oh, God. There are all sorts of authors. There are authors who are not interested in the story.
Yeah.
They're more interested in ideas. And there are a lot of people who read those kinds of authors. There are authors who are interested in landscape, and you talk to an author and they'll say, the main character is the landscape.
Yeah.
But I am interested in stories. I started out with, traditional storytelling. So once upon a time there was a man, and so you follow that story up to the end. So for me, the following the plot, it doesn't matter how the plot is ranked, but following the experiences of this person is very important. So for me, that is the idea of telling stories. That a novel, a short story should have a story, but that doesn't make books that are not doing the story less important. For me, the story is very, very important.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I think there's someone here called Remy, who is asking, is there a difference between how you write a short story and how you work on a novel? What kind of mind frame are you in for either?
Okay, yeah, there's a difference. And before you even ask, I know immediately that this is going to be a short story, that this is going to be a novel. I find the novel a lot easier to write than the short story. So after finishing this collection, I thought, I'm not writing another short story because I found them incredibly difficult. And I haven't worked out how to do them, to walk you through this is what you do with a short story. I can walk you through a novel, but I can't walk you through a short story. Because for me, the short story is about a rhythm, something clicks, something falls into place, and it feels right, and I move on, But whether there's a mindset for the short story and a mindset for the novel, I can't tell you that. I just know instinctively that this is a short story, that this is a novel. But I think because the novel allows me to meander, to go over there and over there, while the short story is like bang, 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 get on with it. You can't do that. You can't do that. Get rid of that. It's so controlled, and I hate that.
Okay. I'm surprised. I'm surprised you've said that you find writing a novel easier than writing a collection, considering the amount of time it took you to write Chintu. And I'm just wondering, was it because of the research process, or was it just because there's something about the story that needed to take that long for you
It's
to
not,
be able to execute it?
Troy, it's not time. I don't mind. Look, my next novel, I've had it for 20 years.
Okay.
So it's not about time.
Yeah.
Maybe it is about time because the short story, you have to do it quickly and quickly. I have no excuse writing a short story for 5 or 6 years. I
Yeah.
can get away with a novel. But I can't tell you why the short story, which takes a short time, my shortest story took 6 months to write. But I felt under pressure. I think for me, it is always, again, takes us back to the story. Even that short story has a story, you know, beginning to end. Most people's short stories are a moment. So if you look at the the second short story, it's set between 1945 to 1955. You know, that is a short story, but it's a whole life, and I had to put it in a few words. That is very difficult for me.
Yeah. Someone is asking. Okay, before I ask,
Hi, Bakari.
This is Belinda. Before I ask her question, I think I just want to tie it with a question that I had.
Yeah.
You use Ugandan English a lot in your work, and the way you read your work, it's very distinct. And you know, I don't think anyone else can read your work in that way and be able to capture the essence of the story. So, would you ever consider doing an audiobook for Chintu and, you know, Manchester Happen and First Woman as well?
I haven't done the audio stories because I haven't been asked. But yes, you're absolutely right. Someone read my story and murdered it. So no, I'd never, ever trust my stories to anyone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can imagine. So much for Remy is always making fun of our accents, so I hope he's hearing
Yeah,
this.
Remy was asking me an uncomfortable question. I'm glad it's gone.
There's this young writer, emerging writer called Zukiso Havana, who is asking, what's the trick to winning literary prizes with money? I mean, you've won the Kwani Manuscript Prize, the Commonwealth Prize, and the Wyndham Campbell. These are like really big prizes. So what's the trick? Teach us some tricks so we can be able to win the awards as well.
Have money.
I know Zukiso has won some awards, so that's not fair. But to answer this seriously and forget Zukiso, you never ever write to win a prize. Yeah. You're going to fail. I can promise you that. You're going to fail immediately because nobody knows. And you know, I have judged prizes, but it's very, very hard to know what people want. Okay, or what those 4 or 5 people will choose, or what they are looking for in a story. Okay, yeah. I remember when I was a judge on the Commonwealth, I had these stories that I put together, and I thought, oh my God, these are the winners. And I went over there and met the other judges, and they were like, no, thank you. You know, yeah. Absolutely. The best way to win an award is to write for someone. Whether you write for yourself or you write for the people you know. So I write for Ugandans, but that is because I know a little bit about what Ugandans want, because I'm Ugandan. I know the kind of stories that I used to love when I was young. I know the kind of stories that our dramatists in who you know do drama in our first languages, the kind of drama they do. Yeah. And I know how Ugandans love that. And so that's what I write. Anyone else, you can fall in line. But I tend to imagine that if I can please Ugandans and Africans, I'm good.
Okay. I think you really write Uganda. You write Uganda very well. I think Taban Loliong called East Africa literary desert, and you're one of the few people who are actually who are able to write East Africa and specifically Uganda very well. So I was just wondering, how does it feel? How do you reconcile living in Manchester, where you've been living with your family, and writing about Uganda? Does it feel as if you're removed from that context, or does it feel like you're still able to write about it perfectly well?
When I am Uganda, you can remove Uganda from Kampala and put them in wherever, but you can't take the Uganda out of them.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And I sometimes I think I write from nostalgia, I write from longing. And the other thing is that now that I am in Britain, I have a double vision. I remember how we see, how we feel, how we are, how we speak in Uganda. But I am terribly aware of how that is so different from the way the British see, feel, or they are.
Yeah.
Okay? And it's very easy for me to look back to Uganda and just remember that and recall and retrieve and bring into the place this difference. Okay? And you know what, Troy? I think if I was in Uganda, I wouldn't have written like that. I suspect very much that I would have, tried to imitate Achebe or, other people. But once I was removed from Uganda, I am at a distance and I can see it so visibly. And I'm not writing the Uganda now. I'm writing the Uganda I carried with me. Do you know that Uganda is not there anymore? So, for example, my son, who was born in the late 90s, doesn't know the Uganda that was there in the 80s. All those people in Uganda who are there now do not know the Uganda in the 80s the way I do it. They might be in Uganda, but they don't. And they'll never be able to. I carried that with me. Okay? And that's what I'm writing. I write the Uganda I carried. And you know what, Troy? I go home and I speak Luganda, and people say, "Oh, you speak such deep Luganda." And I'm like, "What? Is that deep and shallow Luganda now?" And I get angry. The kind of Luganda people speak is so broken, but they are working so hard at English. And I'm like, what? Do you think that is Luganda?
Yeah.
Oh.
So do you think you'd ever write a book in Luganda?
My dear. It's one thing criticizing the way people speak Luganda. It's another thing writing it. Okay?
Okay.
You know, our languages, they are very complex when it comes to grammar.
Yeah.
I don't know about Swahili or your first language, but Luganda, I mean, I can write it. Definitely, I can write it. But when you give it to the people, the custodians of the language, who, the PhD people in Makerere or the editors, they're going to say, what is this? What is this? So I limit my Luganda to text and to writing letters to my mother. My mother won't read English letters.
Okay, so there's two questions here. I want to see if we can link them.
Yes.
So someone is asking, Chintu has so many powerful female figures. Could you please say something about Kusi in particular? And I want to link it with the question about which character was the most difficult to write in Chintu?
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I say something about Kosi?
Yep.
Kosi is one of those characters that broke my heart writing her.
Yeah.
Because she almost had a book of her own. She had a childhood, you know, when she joined the army, how she fought during the war, and how she ended up the way she ended up. But you know, editing got rid of it so that her father, Macy, could be the major figure. So this is why every time people say it's a feminist novel, I'm like, you have no idea what I gave up, you know, to have those men stand up. So I muted her very, very much. So you have to go back and look at her again to fully realize who she is, and what she's doing. She's doing a lot, but I'm not going to help you and tell you that. But whoever asked this question, I'm sure is aware that's why they're asking. Now, all I can tell you is that she had a larger part in the novel, and when I had to edit her, I made her very compact.
Okay.
And who was the hardest character to write?
Yeah.
Again, it was a woman, Feist. Again, Feist was overpowering her husband. She was such a strong character, even I was aware. But she was not a Chintu. She was not a descendant of Chintu. So she had to take a back step. And, you know, but in the end, I made her strength something to be afraid of. And I made her husband's laid backness something to sympathize with, because she was so overpowering. I didn't know what else to do with her. So she was, I think, the hardest character to write.
Oh. So there's so many questions about people asking about your research process for Chintu, and I think people just wanting to know generally what your writing routine is like. So can you tell us, you know, what your research process is for both Chintu and Manchester Happen, and how they differ, and, you know, what your writing routine is like when you're working on your books?
Oh God, that is 3 questions, Troy. And I'm
It's
going
not
to
my
forget
fault.
that.
It's the replies. It's the replies that are coming in. So
okay,
you know,
so routine, research process. So let me say this. When I set out to write a novel, so now I'm starting a new novel.
Yeah.
And I'm at that process where I'm just putting down the bones. I start with the skeleton of the story. But perhaps before I put down the skeleton, it's brainstorm. This is where I carry a notebook on me, or sometimes I note things down on the phone, and I just put things down, ideas. But when a chapter forms, I put it down. So for example, in this new book I'm writing, I have written the final chapter, and I've written the beginning, the first chapter. And the middle, I'm just floating around. I don't know where it's going, but I suspect something is coming. I just have to be patient. So I have a notebook and I'm writing a lot down. But finally, when I've put the flesh, rather the bones down, I go back and put on the flesh. And you know, so that there's a kind of shape. And then I come back and start to really chisel away and form a particular shape. And then I start to edit. I edit for not less than 3 years. However, research, I don't go out and do research for my book before I start. because then research can take you into places you hadn't planned to go. Because every time you find out something new, you're like, oh my God, people will love to know this. Oh my God, I should put this down.
Yeah.
But I wait until I've put my story down so that my story guides me. So when I come across something that needs researching, then I do that research. Okay? So there's a chapter in the book that I need to travel to Uganda for. I haven't touched that chapter. I'll have to travel to Uganda, do my research there, and then come back and write that chapter. That's one chapter. There's another chapter that I have to travel to South Africa to research. And I'll have to do that. And once I've done that, then I'll rely on the libraries. That's the one advantage I have being in Britain, because we have access to libraries. And then other things I Google. Okay? But I don't have a routine. I don't wake up in the morning and I say, like certain people, I wake up at 5 and start writing, and then at 9 I go for a walk and have a cup of tea. No, I'm not that disciplined. There are times when I wake up and I write from 5. My partner comes back at 7 and says, you mean you haven't got up yet, in the evening? And then another day I come sit down to write, and I look and I click on something, and I click on gossip, and I call somebody, and I text. But I don't feel that this is a wasted day, or I have worked hard. That's my routine. I've come to accept it.
Okay, so speaking of gossip, there's 2 people here who love gossip so much. One of them is asking, what's your skincare routine? And another one is asking, is it necessary to have a good headgear game for you to be successful? I don't even know what these questions are, but just answer them, please.
For the skincare, I am going to break your heart. My mama gave me this skin. I use, especially over here, I have such dry skin. I get Vaseline, and I told you I'll break your heart. I get Vaseline, and I mix with some good lotion, normally E45, and makes it soft, and that's what I use.
Yeah.
My skin has never been fussy. It has never put pressure on me. So whatever I put on it, it just say, okay, I'll go with that. So I'm thankful for that. I'm sorry. And my grandmother told me that there's no such thing as a good for the skin. Just sweat, good old sweat is the best thing for your skin. But then, so I do go to the sauna to get to help his sweat, because that's the best way to moisturize it. And what was the second one?
The headgear. Is it necessary?
Let me tell you something. I did this headgear and I thought, oh my God, this is good.
To be fair, I was going to wear a headgear, and then Zukiswa was like, no, Remy doesn't like competition. So let me take Remy.
I know. Zukiswa, you saw my hair this morning when I was, doing the runs. But I'm telling you, it's not easy to do these raps. People don't realize. But for this one, I did it in one sitting. I went to my partner and I said, ha, ha, ha. He was like, well, you've done it. So I was waiting to show it off. Yeah, you do win prizes with this rap. Try it.
Okay, Remy, take notes. Okay, so there's this question that has been asked twice, I think. And so people are generally interested to know, do you have a say in your book titles? Considering Manchester Happened is called Let's Tell This Story Properly in the US. How do you feel about that? Are you okay with it?
That's a tough one for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say that the Americans, because they have a large market, and I'm being very truthful here. The only reason I give in to changes of titles is because the Americans and the Canadians have a large market. And apparently they are insular. So their publishers know the kind of titles they want. So you know that my second story is called
First Woman. Yeah.
First Woman.
Yeah.
But the Americans, a girl is a body of water.
Oh, that's really interesting because I haven't had the American title.
That's the American. They just could not have First Woman because they kept on saying First Woman. They would be thinking of Ginsburg, the first woman in this, the first woman on the moon, the first woman in there. So they refused it. But I do want to sell copies. A title is not a big deal.
Yeah.
For me, what is between those two covers is most important. So that's the reason.
Okay. So one of the best African writers, I think he was included in Africa 41 or something of that sort, is asking, considering your research process, have you ever written something and after conducting the research, you feel, oh shit, I have to start over all over again? Have you ever had that feeling, or that's for amateurs?
No, I did that. There's a lot. So let me tell you something. I did a lot of research. I did more research in the Bible, the Quran, the Torah about Ham for Chintu. I read a lot of critical essays on how Africans came to be called descendants of Ham. But do you see it in the book?
No.
Exactly. So, yeah, you do get rid of a lot of research, and it hurts. It hurts.
Okay. I'm trying to see if there's any useful question here. All these people. Why are you dismissing our question? All these people are just asking irrelevant questions. I don't even think they've read your book.
Oh
okay.
My God. Go on.
Remy again. He just likes disturbing us. He's asking, has winning the awards brought you a measure of economic security while you write?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. I can't lie. You know, $165,000 is much more than $0. Are you kidding me?
Definitely.
Of course. It's incredible, the awards. Thank God someone up there decided to help me because I was staggeringly broke. You know, just ridiculously broke, and it helps, you know, because I do a lot of print-offs. You know, when the novel is done, and I am sure it's done, that's the point at which I start printing off, I bind, and then I read it the way a reader would read it. But I could do almost 10 copies of those print-offs. Now, imagine my books, Chintu is 400 and something pages. This new book is also 400 and something pages. That is a lot of money. And in terms of ink, I have had because my editors here are white British who've never been to Uganda. I've had to send both books, Manchester Happened and the new one, to an African editor. You know, just to make sure. That's how crazy I am, just to check me and make sure, you know, I'm not being funny or lazy. But they end up actually editing and saying, okay, the British reader won't understand this. But that is because they are both African and British, you know, and they can advise me. But if I didn't have that money, because that's pretty expensive, I wouldn't be able to do that.
Okay, so there's this young writer called Maaza Mengistu. I don't know if you've ever heard of her.
Hi, Maaza.
And she's asking.
Congratulations on your awards and on your great book again.
And she's asking how your writing has changed.
How my writing has changed?
From book to book, how your writing changes from book to book. I'm trying to find the exact question, but Remy has so many messages on here.
Okay, so I've never considered that. Has there been a change in the way I write? I think the change will come with this new book, because the 3 books, Chintu, Manchester Happened, and then The First Woman, they were written at the same time. You know, they were being rejected and I would go to that one. That is rejected, I go to the other one. So I wrote those 3 books together. Okay, so this book that is going to be published was written first. Then Chintu was the second. Then Manchester Happened was the third. But guess what? The first one is being published third. So I cannot tell you whether there's a difference in the way I wrote those. However, this new one, I think I'm more confident. I think I've been given enough confidence by readers and publisher and the awards to say, okay, Jennifer, you know what you're doing. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm no longer insecure. I am. I mean, I put down who's going to read this shit, and
we will read it. Anyway, so there's a question that I've seen come up over and over again. Memoirs of Namaso, I think.
Yes.
That short story. How are you able to pull off the POV, the dog POV? So, if you could tell us about that.
That's one short story I enjoyed.
I really loved it as well.
And perhaps that's another thing to say to those writers who are just starting out. If you enjoy your story, people will writing your story, people will enjoy reading it. You know, when I arrived here, I grew up in Kampala. We kept our dogs outside. You know, it comes in, we're like, out, out, out. And then we lock it up during daytime, and then, you know, let it out at night and expect it to bark. Not that, you know, they tended to just run out and just go find mates. You wake up in the night and the dog is not there, you know? And then there were those dogs on the streets.
Yeah.
So I arrive in Britain, and oh my God, the way people treat their dogs out here.
It's completely different.
You know, I have been here 19 years and I still haven't got over it. Recently, I was going past a dog grooming shop, and there was this poodle with a lot of fur, and the hand blow dryer. They were blowing its hair, and it was blowing in the wind. It was like, what? I beg your pardon. And the dog was just sitting there like, huh? And I think of our dog, Bucky.
I am finished.
You have no idea. Then I got somewhere in San Francisco. I was in Oakland. It was summer, and people were competing on how best to dress your dog. And this really pug comes strutting around, with sunglasses, a pink tutu. I was like, that dog wants to beat that. I would imagine all the dogs it was walking past saying, look at that fool. I'm sure they were laughing at it. All the other dogs.
Oh.
So you wonder where that story came from?
Okay, now this story is even funnier. Anyway, so I think we're almost running out of time. So because today is World Book Day, I just want to know what you're currently reading and who are your favorite authors.
Okay, normally I don't do favorite authors. I sometimes do favorite books, but I move on quite quickly. I'm such a slut, The book that was fantastic last year has been replaced by another, Right now, I'm having a relationship with Marlon James. I think that guy is real. Honestly, I read his Women of the Night, something women.
The book of Night Women.
Night Women. I thought, did a man write this book? Seriously? Often men have problems writing women, but Marlon James, no. And now I'm reading Black Leopard, Red Wolf.
Yeah.
And he is telling these stories, and it's a long story, but it's made up of tiny, tiny, tiny stories. Those tiny, tiny. And I'm like, which violence? I don't see it. So people remain in their bodies, especially their British or American or Western bodies, and inhabit this world that is, mythical. And I'm like, why would you do that? When you're reading a book, you leave the whole of yourself behind, and you allow the author to take you into this world. So, I am there killing and being killed. I am there doing this with him. And for me, it's not violence. This is the world that these people inhabit. And they are not people. They are half human, half animals. So that's Marlon James.
Okay, so those are two good recommendations. So just one, I think this should be our final question. Do you think Manchester happened and First Woman will be translated into French so that we can have it in more colonial languages?
I don't know. The French, we tend to say people on the continent are very sniffy, about short stories. I didn't know. I didn't know that people are snobbish about short stories. They're hard to write, for goodness sakes. Hard to write. And they're like, you said to somebody, yeah, my collection is out in there. Yeah, we know, but when is your novel coming up? F off. But I don't know. I don't know when, at least it hasn't, the rights have not been sold to the collection. But I suspect if I put out a very good novel, It's all about, are you a selling author? And then
Yeah.
anything you write sells. So
Okay. The question was actually from Edwige, who is a really amazing translator. So we are hoping this is her shooting her shot, so she can be able to translate your books into French. So let's see that happen.
yeah, well, I wouldn't mind anybody trying to translate them in Swahili or
Definitely.
Luganda.
Or Luganda as well.
That would be wonderful.
All right. Yeah, I think that's that. What? Yeah, I think that's the end of our session. Thank you so much, Jennifer. You've been amazing. You've been hilarious. It's been insightful. I'm really grateful that you are able to join us. Thank you so much.
Oh God, thank you for having me. Thank you, Zukiswa, for creating this platform, and Maaza. This is really wonderful because, I was so bored here. But thank you, James. Is James Murua there? Thank you for all the messages you sent about African writing. That's where I find all my African fixes, all my gossip from James Murua.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to
And
exit
thank
now.
you, Troy.
Thank you.
And everybody, thank you. Okay, end. Okay. You are not going to play games.